Hey, what's up, YouTubers and those who may be watching this on Facebook? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent Switch/gaming video for this week, for the week of June 30th to July 6th, where I take a look at several stories that caught my attention and give you my thoughts and my opinion. Before we get started, I do want to wish everyone who had a happy and safe 4th of July. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's 4th of July, whether it was with friends and family, whether you went out someplace special, whether you had a barbecue or anything like that. I hope you guys enjoyed your 4th of July for this week. And of course, there are some quick stories, quick news or quick stories I want to point out, though, that recently we picked up on. Some of them ranging from the fact that or not on that I basically learned about, that basically that we learned that Daemon X Machina is going to have a collector's edition, but that will only be in okay, that's my phone, I don't know why that's doing that, so silence to that one. That will only be currently right now in Europe and in Australia at this time, which is a bit of a disappointment, because it would have been interesting to see if it would have come over here to the US. We also learned that The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt for the Nintendo Switch, there is a possibility it could have an actual release date. Right now, the rumor has it that it could be set for the date of September 24th, although no official confirmation has been made at this time, so we kind of have to wait and see on that one, though. And we also learned that despite the concerns about the tariffs that could have impact on several consoles and the price of it could have gone up, it seems that that's being held off, at least for now, though. We'll see where things go from there, but right now it doesn't seem like they're going to see the prices of console go up at this time. Could that change down the road? Possibly, but for right now it doesn't seem that is happening at the moment. So with that part out of the way, we'll get started with our My 2 Cent video. And for this one, we're going to be talking about Nintendo's stance on basically censorship. Now, back in the 80s and the 90s, though, early 90s to be exact, though, Nintendo, although they did produce a lot of great games, basically back on the days of the NES and the Super NES, though, with Super Nintendo being like a very popular console among a lot of old school gamers like us, although there are audience that love the Sega Genesis. Nothing against Sega Genesis, I'm sure there are people who love that system as well. But one of the criticisms Nintendo had back in those days was they had a really strict policy on certain games or certain features being used in certain games. They had a policy of not using anything with, sex, religion, and all that stuff. It's the reason why some games were altered and changed. For example, Final Fight, that was ported over to the Super Nintendo, putting aside some issues that I had with the game, not having Guy and one of the levels missing, 2 of the characters were altered and changed. I believe that was Poison and Roxy, though, with 2 male characters and so forth. 2 games like, I believe, Wolfenstein 3D being ported over to Super Nintendo, to removing symbols like the Nazi symbol and so forth. So Nintendo was kind of... Oh, and of course there's the famous Mortal Kombat, which we all remember how the blood and the gore were taken out of that version compared to the Sega Genesis, which also gave rise to eventually the ESRB, and when Mortal Kombat 2 came out, that changed a bit. So basically Nintendo was notorious back then when it came to censorship in some of their games and so forth. However, lately and recently, a statement made by Nintendo has really shown that Nintendo certainly has really over the years changed their views in regards to censorship and all that stuff, which is interesting, especially considering where Sony is going right now in regards to censorship. In several different articles, one from Nintendo Enthusiasts, again, links will be in the description of this video, it points out that Sony has faced backlash lately over a policy change regarding censorship. Several games have had their content altered to conform these guidelines. Nintendo, however, has been relaxing its policies on this in recent years. Thanks to this, the unaltered versions versions have often found home on Nintendo Switch. Nintendo recently reaffirmed this policy during the annual general meeting of shareholders, which, from what I understand, both Shigeru Iwata and other CEOs certainly got high marks from like investors and so forth. Nintendo is certainly no stranger to censorship. This practice dates back at least to the release of the original Mortal Kombat. The game's violent content was taken out to remain more family-friendly. Even after the ESRB came into existence, however, the policy remained. Even more modern games such as Tokyo Mirage Session and Fire Emblem Fates and many others have gone through a similar situation. Other one, of course, is Xenoblade Chronicle X, where a certain outfit was altered and a certain feature, pardon my language of this, basically known as the breast slider, where you could change the size of a woman's breast or something, was taken out as well for the Western elites. Lately, however, Nintendo has done a complete turnaround. Instead of limiting games, they've been embracing them. One question asked during the recent shareholders meeting addressing this shift, notably Nintendo reaffirmed this commitment. The question that was asked was, quote, about content regulation on other platforms, there are cases of restrictions applied independently of the CERO, I believe that's the rating system in Japan, and other third-party organization. What does Nintendo do? And according to the Nintendo president, he says, quote, as do third parties and their software applies for an objective rating from third-party organizations prior to release. If platform holding companies choose arbitrarily, the diversity and fairness in game software would be significantly inhabitable. We provide parental controls that can be used to apply to limits. So in other words, outside of putting the parental controls in the Nintendo Switch and so forth, Nintendo has basically taken the position of whatever the rating gets, it gets. If a third-party developer wants to make a game that is, whether it's risque or raunchy or violent or so forth, or a mixture of both, as long as it gets the rating system, they're okay with it. And honestly, I think that's actually a very good thing, and I'm glad that Nintendo is sort of changing some of their positions in regards to censorship and allowing third-party developers to make the games they want to make, and whatever rating they get, that's the rating, and they're okay with it being on their system. Now, there are some criticism Nintendo has had. Some of the trailers for some of their upcoming games have kind of been altered, especially shown on their Nintendo channel and so forth. Who, as it mentioned in the article earlier, that Nintendo is known to censor some of their first-party games as well. So there's some things that Nintendo, I do feel, needs to change a bit, though. But I do think I am glad that they are at least approaching it as like, you know what? If you're a third-party developer, if this is the kind of game you want to make, then it's whatever. As long as it gets that rating on it, like most likely the highest they'll go up is to M rated. I doubt that they would support any game that is AO, which is adults only. Then that's fine with them. And I think that is a good thing, and it's a complete opposite to what Sony is doing, which is recently they have started to clamp down on some of the censorship, or at least embrace some of the censorship, it should be exact. And while I understand it's their platform and they could choose to do whatever they want to do, I think it's a ridiculous policy. I think if a third-party developer wants to make a game that is either violent or risque or raunchy, I say let them do that. Let them make that kind of game, and if it gets an M rated, it gets an M rated, though. I don't see what's wrong with that or anything like that. So my overall take is that I'm glad Nintendo is easing a lot on their censorship. I'm glad that they are allowing third-party developers to make the kind of game they want to make, regardless if it's risque and raunchy. And I think this is a good thing, because in order for the Switch to be a success, it has to have different variety of games, regardless of whether it's risque or raunchy or ultra-violent, or neither of that, or just a plain, simple, family-friendly game. Doesn't matter. You gotta have different varieties of games, and I'm glad they're not stopping developers from making the kind of games they want to make. So overall, I think this is good for what Nintendo is doing, though, and I hope they continue with this approach going forward. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to get to part 2. And this one has to do with the UK sales for this week, with some interesting surprises from it, particularly from one game. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our My 2 Cent video for this week. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at the UK sales for this week. Now, I'm sure some of you may or may not know, though, unlike here in North America, or in America to be exactly, where we have the NPD charts, which are produced every month, other places like Famitsu, and I believe in places like Japan with Famitsu, and over here in the UK, they do basically the sales charts for every week, and it sort of gives you an idea of what games are doing well. And this week kind of caught some things very interesting. Two big things that at least caught my attention, and from excuse me, and from an article from Game Industry Buzz, it has to do with in regards to Super Mario Maker 2 and Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, especially the Switch version. So, in an article from Game Industry Buzz, it reads that, quote, UK retail charts, Super Mario Maker 2 overtakes Crash Team Racing at number 1. FIFA F1 2019 makes number 3. Judgment is number 4, while Bloodstained reaches the top 10. According to the article, it reads, quote, Super Mario Maker 2 has ended Crash Team Racing Nitro Fuel brief stay at the top of the UK physical retail charts. The Nintendo exclusive is the biggest Nintendo launch of the year, ahead of New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. The arrival of the game concludes with a significant marketing push for the console, which has seen numerous Switch titles rise up in the charts. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe jumped from number 8 to number 5 with a 39% increase in sales week on week, while Super Smash Bros. Ultimate rounds off the top 10 at number 10, rising 14% in sales. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild also rose up to 66% in sales, and is at number 11, up from number 22. The 2017 game missed out in the top 10 by just 28 copies. So, obviously, Super Mario Maker 2 definitely had a good week for it in the UK. So, and actually overthrowing Crash Team Nitro Racing, Nitro Fueled, which is kind of interesting because I've seen the Crash Insane trilogy on the UK charts that have been there for like quite a while, though. So there's like obviously like probably must be a huge fan base of Crash fans in the UK. But the big one also happens to be Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. And this is the part where it gets really interesting for me, at least from my perspective, though. According to the article from Game Industry Buzz, which continues, it points out, quote, the other big Switch performer of the week is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. The Nintendo version reached physical retails this week. The Xbox One and PS4 edition arrived last week, which helped the game increase 60% in sales and climb from number 17 to number 9. The Switch version actually sold more in its first week than the Xbox One and PS4 version combined, managing in their first week. Nintendo Switch has proven to be a successful platform for retro-inspired indie games. So, let's see if we can get this straight, though, at least according to what basically Game Industry Buzz is reporting, though. Despite the criticism the Switch version has, despite some people complaining that the game is broken and all that stuff, I've been playing it on the Nintendo Switch, and while I agree that there's certainly some areas it needs to improve upon, it's definitely not broken as some have made it out to be. But despite that, it sold more in the UK. The Switch version sold more than the PS4 and Xbox One version did, and it pushed the game up from, let me see, what was it originally at? It pushed it from number 17 to number 9. I mean, there's a lot of things going through my head when I read that. And I think some of it was that the developers did kind of drop the ball on the Switch version, though. Although now they're now focusing on fixing that version as well, which I think is a good thing. But it shows that obviously the attach rate for Switch versions of games are pretty good, and people are willing to buy the Switch version, regardless if that version may not be the best looking version out there. I do think there is a limitation, though. I mean, yes, having a portable version is one thing, but if it's unplayable, that might not convince people to pick it up. But the fact that this version sold more in the UK over the PS4 and Xbox One is pretty amazing, and it's going to be very interesting to see where it stands in the NPD charts when that comes out. I think we'll probably get July's one. We'll learn more about it maybe in August NPD, but that's pretty impressive, though, and it's kind of surprising to see that happen. So great that the game went up on the UK charts. Kind of surprising to see the Switch version sold the most, despite the fact that some people have criticisms of the Switch version. Like I said, I haven't had any issues with it. Again, I can't speak for everybody. I'm sure other people may have a difference of opinion about it, but like I said, I certainly haven't had any problems with it. In regards to Bloodstained, however, I do want to say before I end this part, though, is that they did give us an update on Kickstarter in regards of what changes or improvement is going to be made. And according to the Kickstarter page on it, though, link will be in the description, they pointed out certain fixes and improvement. The first one is regarding the chest bug. In regards to the Xbox One, they're saying that the status is that the fix is incoming, though. They said treasure chest issue has been fixed. After the patch, unique items will be obtained even on existing playthrough. The patch for this should be submitted today, Wednesday, and we anticipate public release on Friday or Saturday. The team is working on additional improvements and bugs fixes. PS4 status, they have it at unchanged, and they're saying the problem caused the bug has been identified. Teams are working to identify and implement solutions. No new user affected by this bug. Just like before, all new games and playthroughs are safe to play. For the Nintendo Switch, they're saying the status is that the fix is being tested. They're saying the fix is currently in test. The submission date we were working towards has been delayed due to a graphical bug that has reemerged. We anticipate the test will be completed by next week, which we mean an ETA of public release during the week of July 15th, 2019. They also talked about map improvement, ranging from stuff like map close button has been remapped to standard exit and close buttons. Marker buttons have been changed. Map soul screen improved. Zoom in, zoom out improved. They're fixing a bug that says no longer displays enemies for completed quests. They've also said fix items getting stuck on walls and geometry. The functionality of waiting until the item is collected automatically has been left in case the issue precise. In terms of Switch specific improvements, they've stated, quote, HD rumble issues in certain areas of the game has been fixed. Enable traditional Chinese language option. Fixed instance where the game would crash when going between rooms. Work has been done on technical non-visible side of things to improve input delays, stability, and various optimization. The team are continuing to work on these items and will have a future update and plans to share soon. As far as the IGA Backpack DLC, as far as the Xbox One goes, the DLC is being tested. They're saying, quote, tests will happen next week. If completed successfully, we will submit and have an updated ETA for release during the week of July 15th, 2019. For the PS4, the status is the DLC is submitted, pending approval and release. We're currently working through some submissions with Sony and plan to have an update hopefully for the release of next week. And as far as the Nintendo Switch goes, they said the status. They said the DLC has been approved and release imminent. They said, "quote The DLC has been approved by Nintendo. We're just taking the final step to make it go live." So, for a quick update, it looks like they are fixing certain things, such as the chest bug, making some improvements, and they're also pointing out some Switch-specific improvements that are going to be made. So, overall, glad that they're fixing some of those problems as well. Would have been nice if they had addressed these problems early on, and would also been nice if they made the Switch version a priority as well. But I'm glad that they are addressing it and being open about it, to say the least. So the takeaway from that is they're making some improvements, fixing it, and it is surprising to see that as far as on the UK sale chart go, the Switch version outselling the other versions. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 3, and this one has to do with regards of the DLC for the upcoming Cuphead DLC, and that it somewhat has hit a delay in a way. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one we're going to be talking about Cuphead, or delay of one of the DLC that was originally supposed to come out this year though. So one of the indie surprise that came out this year, or earlier this month though, was the announcement that Cuphead, originally an Xbox exclusive, or originally thought it was going to be just for the Xbox only, was announced for the Nintendo Switch, which kind of shocked a lot of people. But then Microsoft explained why they were doing this, and sort of a way to sort of expand the Xbox brand in a certain way. Now, I've played Cuphead before, and it's hard in hell. I won't dispute that in any way, but it's also a fun game at the same time, even though I'm not really a big fan of just game of a boss rush mode only, though it was still an enjoyable experience nevertheless though. So it was sort of interesting when they announced the upcoming DLC that was going to be coming not only to the Xbox, Windows 10, or through Steam, and even for the Nintendo Switch, but also the Switch version will be getting a physical version with the DLC as well. Well, it seems as though it doesn't sound like we're getting the DLC this year at all though, and the developers came out for the reason why we're not getting the delicious last course. That's what the DLC is being referred to this year, according to an article from Engadget. Again, the link will be in the description. It reads, quote, "Fans of run and gun shooter Cuphead have surely been waiting patiently for the arrival of the game's first expansion, which Studio MDHR announced at E3 2018. You might have been expecting to get grips with the new playable character, Miss Charlotte's, CHALICE's, weapons, charms, and even more feisty, difficult bosses sometime over the next few months, but the delicious Last Course DLC has been delayed till next year. Studio MDHR said it was pushing back the release date of the expansion to make sure that the new adventure meets the miraculously or level of care and quality we always strive for. The developer also suggests it's hoping to avoid the crunch culture that permeates the gaming industry, where developers are often encouraged or required to work a vast amount of overtime to finish a project properly. The development of the original game taught us a great deal about the importance of making things in a way that's healthy and sustainable for our team," the studio wrote in a blog. And honestly, I have to say, if that's the reason why they are delaying the DLC, I think that's a very good reason, though. I don't want the developers to I don't want to hear the horror story of this game falling into what happened with Anthem, with the whole crunch time to basically people having to see a psychiatrist and all that stuff, or not being able to see their friends or family. So for me, if what the developers of Cuphead are saying are true, I think this is a very, very good thing. I want them to take their time. I want them to make sure that they nail down everything they need to make sure that this DLC works, it functions properly, and so forth. But be able to have the staff be able to, work on it while be able to have a healthy work environment, and while be able to spend time with friends and families and so forth. So if what the developers are saying are true, I would say this is a good thing. And yes, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for the DLC, which is unfortunate though, but I would rather wait a little bit longer and ensure that the staff make sure that the developers nail down everything they need to do while ensuring that the development team works on a healthy environment than have a game rush out that is broken, incomplete, and then hear the horror stories about how developers were forced to work overtime, to even having to see a psychiatrist or so forth, all that stuff like what we heard with Anthem. So overall, I think this is the right decision to do if what the developers are saying are true. And yes, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer, but I have confidence and believe that this is probably going to be worth the wait, though. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 4, and this one has to do with EA commenting on why they don't like being viewed as the bad guy in any way. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 4 of our My True Scent video for this week. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at EA and a response they made on why they are not pleased with them being viewed as the bad guy. Now, EA has been on the news lately over the years, though, from winning like the worst company in America for 2 years in a row, to basically how they've handled games like SimCity and the fact that they didn't push for any single player, to you have to be always online and all that stuff, to eventually closing studios like Maxis, to the stories of what we heard of games like studios like Visceral with the Dead Space series after what happened with Dead Space 3, to eventually that studio being closed, to how they even handled the Star Wars license, especially after Star Wars Battlefront 2, and of course the backlash, in my opinion, that has been rightfully deserved. And earlier, I think this week, or at least a couple of days ago, some folks who worked at EA who were speaking at a UK parliamentary committee about the whole issue of loot boxes and microtransactions, and made the comment about calling them surprise mechanics that, well, rub people the wrong way. So there are plenty reasons why people hate EA. Well, someone at EA recently spoke out about this, and basically, according to what they view it, is that they don't seem to understand, or at least the way I'm interpreting it, of why they are often reviewed as the bad guy. In an article from Prima Games, which they picked up from Game Industry Buzz, one of the employees at EA's EVP, Matt Bilbey, opened up in a recent interview with Game Industry about EA, and he says, quote, 25 years at EA, and I still struggle with the eternal perception that we're just a bunch of bad guys, he mentioned. We love making and playing games. Unfortunately, when we make a mistake on games, the world knows about it because of the size and scales. But as the industry shifts into a more aggressive front of monetization, including the high profitable microtransaction, the size and vision of EA warps into something that caters more towards investors while seemingly forgetting those play and enjoy the games. Quote, he added, as we get bigger, there is a concern that we have been disconnected from new talents coming through. EA Originals is our opportunity to connect with that talent and those smaller ideas. When you are a part of a big company, it's too easy to fall into the trap where when you see a game concept, it has to be big. The notion of actually coming up with small, unique game ideas. We know from the work that we've been doing on our subscription business that gamers will play a FIFA or Fortnite. They have one main franchise, but then they want to break from those games and play something that's maybe 5 to 10 hours long. EA's originals are also games that we don't make in the bigger part of EA or don't make enough of. So while there was a philosophy, PHILANTHROPIC, again, I apologize, I'm not saying the name correctly, part of it, selfishness, it was the way for us to connect to talent on smaller ideas. When you are in a company and have had successes and mistakes around live service microtransactions, free to play, when geographies, what partners to work with, what animation engineers, it actually feels good for our team to sit with EA's original developers, and you can actually give real advices. It generally makes you feel good. It's advice that to help them not make the same mistakes. Okay, I do want to say that, even if what he's saying is trying to make it sound like, what EA isn't bad or anything like that, and even if EA does do something good like these EA original, it doesn't change the fact that the company has done, or at least the higher-ups, though, I'm not going to blame the lower-level staff, but the higher-ups that have made decisions that have really ruined EA's reputation. The Star Wars Battlefront 2 debacle is definitely a very good example of this, of how EA was pushing to put in loot boxes and microtransactions and try to turn it into a pay-to-win kind of situation. After the amount of backlash that came, especially when it was picked up by the mainstream press, and it took Disney, the head of Disney's, Bob Iger, to call EA and tell you guys to take microtransactions out after the public outcry out of it, though, you can see why people still view EA as a terrible company. It's because of the decisions, and because of the fact that it gives the reputation that you care more about your investors than you care about the consumer. Not to mention that when you don't make all the money you want to make, you basically have to lay off employees to save money and all that stuff. So there's a reason why a lot of people hate EA, and it feels as though EA really doesn't give a damn. Like, they don't care. Like, they don't care the fact that their reputation has been ruined, and we've seen that many times. Even their E3 presentations have not been that received or anything like that. So while EA Origins might be a good thing, though, it doesn't change the fact that their reputation is always going to look bad unless EA actually changes and all that stuff. And when we hear stories about what happened to Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda, even if it's not EA's fault, they're still going to be blamed because you guys own the rights of those IPs, not to mention the studios. And let's not also forget, your company also has a reputation of also, after buying the studio, telling them to implement this and that doesn't sit well with a lot of people, throw them under the bus, and then basically kill off that studio entirely. Mythic Entertainment is a good example, especially after how Dungeon Keeper Mobile was handled, to be exact. And we saw the response that people had with Command & Conquer Rivals and all. So it comes off as basically you guys are out of touch and all. And when you rub people the wrong way, people are going to get upset about it, though. And while some criticism may be uncalled for, there are some that are justifiable, though. I am not convinced in terms of buying games from EA at all, though. After the way they've handled a lot of the situations, though, and after they've rubbed people the wrong way, I have basically stopped buying any EA games. In fact, I stopped buying an EA game. Last one I bought was back in 2017, and that was Mass Effect Andromeda. And given your guys' push for games as a service and heavy monetization, though, I don't have a lot of confidence in any of the games that you guys have put out. Even if that's not your attention and everything or anything like that, even if that's the response you're giving, it's still not enough to convince people. So my overall takeaway on this is that he could try to defend it and say that, look, we're not the bad guys and all that stuff, but when you have the higher-ups making these decisions, making decisions that rub people the wrong way, well, yeah, then you have to understand why people aren't basically, why people are upset with you and why they think you're out of touch and why they don't like the decisions you made. So I'm sorry, I'm just not buying it. This isn't not enough to convince me to pick up another title from EA and all until I see a real change from them. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to get to part 5, and this one has to do with, we finally have an announcement of a strategy RPG announced coming to the Switch, actually announced for the West, and I believe that's Langrisser, Langrisser 1 and 2. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 5 of our My True Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at a strategy RPG game that was, I think, announced like maybe back in 2017 that was in development called Langrisser, Langrisser. Again, I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly, 1 and 2, that was announced for the PS4 and the Nintendo Switch. And now we're learning that the game is actually going to be coming over here to the West after what many thought, wondering if it would be coming over here or not. So in an article from Nintendo Life, it reads, quote, Langrisser 1 and 2 Switch remake secures Western release. It says that, quote, NIS America has today revealed a Western release for Langrisser, again, I apologize, I'm not saying it correctly, 1 and 2 remake on Nintendo Switch. The legendary strategy RPG series will be making a comeback in early 2020. Both games are featured in a single collection and have been entirely remastered with HD graphics, reorchestrated music, and quality of life improvement. We got some they put out some key features in it, which they point out: a blade honor to perfection, experience 2 classic titles with new art, music, and presentation, modernizing a timeless tale, perfect retuned gameplay for modern strategy RPG feel, Langrisser and Aulx Studio, 2 legendary swords, 2 legendary tales brought back to life with new localization and a new character. Again, I apologize if I'm not saying some of these names correctly though. The announcement also brings with news of a limited edition release. You can actually go ahead and pre-order it already from the NIS America's online store for $79.99, $80. It comes with the game for the Switch or the PS4 if you have a PS4 version, since the game's also coming to the PS4 as well. Not to mention, it will also be available on Steam too for those who like get their games on PC and so forth. A visual book, a 2-disc soundtrack, a 3-disc Song of War soundtrack, a collector's box, and a collector's art card. So, and it's interesting that they're bringing this out months after the release of Fire Emblem Three Houses. Maybe it's possible because they don't want to, compete against, Fire Emblem Three Houses and so forth. Either way, it's nice that some of these old franchises are being reemerged for basically, for a new life, especially on the Nintendo Switch, since we're seeing a lot of RPGs and so forth starting to make their way over to the Nintendo Switch. And honestly, I think that's a good thing, especially for a system that is designed as a console handheld hybrid though. So, and I never tried any of these games before, so it will be very interesting to try it out when it comes to the Nintendo Switch next year and so forth though. And it will be very curious to see if this one does well, if there are any other entries in the series, and if so, would they be remaking those entries as well. So overall, very nice that they finally have a Western release date, somewhat of a Western release date. They say early 2020 though. And as far as the collector's edition, well, what if it's worth the $80 and so forth, it's worth getting. So if it's a title you're willing to keep, excuse me, if it's a title you want to try out or take a look at, consider taking a look at this title when it comes out early 2020. Though whether or not the collector's edition is worth the price or anything like that, it's going to come down to your preference and your taste. But overall, great that we have a release date for Langrisser. Again, apologize if I'm saying incorrectly. 1 and 2. Here's to hoping it does well enough that it convinces them, if there are other entries as well, to bring those other entries over, hopefully to the Switch and of course, the PS4 and PC too. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 6, and this one has to do with some controversy regarding Pokemon, particularly with the upcoming Sword and Shield that has rubbed some people the wrong way and has put out some allegations that, well, let's just say not everybody, a lot of people are not happy with the allegations and so forth. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our 6th and final part, forget that right in there, of our My True Scent video for this week. And for this one, I do want to talk about a controversy that has kind of emerged recently with Pokemon in regards of Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm not really a big Pokemon fan or anything like that. It's not that I have anything against the series. It's not that I hate the series or have any problem with it being a popular franchise or anything like that. It just never really clicked with me as much as maybe other franchises that Nintendo has put out has been, like, Zelda, Fire Emblem, Mario, Donkey Kong, and so forth. Nevertheless, though, Pokemon Sword and Shield is probably going to be the first real Pokemon game I'm going to get into, and one I want to try out myself to see why people enjoy the series, though. But having said that, though, there are some people who are not happy with some of the decisions, or at least one decision made that, as well, has rubbed people the wrong way to a certain degree. The first one comes from DualShock, and this has to do with a decision to not have the national dex in their Pokemon, in the Pokemon Sword and Shield. According to one of the producers over at Game Freak, basically made this comment. This was made on June 28th, 2019. He said, quote, "Thank you to all our fans for caring so deeply about Pokemon. Recently, I shared news that some Pokemons cannot be transferred to Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield. I've read all your comments and appreciate your love and passion for Pokemon. Just like all of you, we are passionate about Pokemon, and each and every one of them is very important to us. After so many years of developing the Pokemon video games, this was a very difficult decision for me. I like to make one thing clear. Even if a specific Pokemon is not available in Pokemon Sword and Shield, that does not mean it will not appear in future games. The world of Pokemon continues to evolve. The Galar region, if I'm saying the name correctly, offers new Pokemons to encounter, trainers to battle, and adventures to embark on. We are pouring our hearts into these games, and we hope you look forward to joining us in this new journey." Now, this comment didn't exactly sit very well, as there has been a hashtag push called hashtag bring back the natural dex controversy, as it was what it's been referred to. And, well, not everyone enjoyed this, though. There have been some allegations. People have pushed a hashtag called the Fire MAS UDA, Fire Masuda, that hashtag to bring back natural deck to delay Pokemon and all that stuff. And then some have called for the Respect Machida, as many people feel that they don't like this decision and all that stuff. And while it's one thing to be disappointed about something or a feature taken out of a certain game, though, there is a certain degree of how far that criticism should go. I mean, some calling for him to be fired, I think, is going a little over the top, though. But the one that really shows that really went too far is one person, although it's been confirmed to be a troll or something like that, made supposedly an allegation towards the producer of the Pokemon series. Turns out to made a rape allegation, though. In an article from Nintendo Soup, and this was reported, though, it says, quote, "If you are a Pokemon fan, you will probably know by now there is a movement called Bring Back National Dex, pending Game Freak and the Pokemon Company to reconsider their plans of omitting Pokemons in Pokemon Sword and Shield and future games. Game Freak's plan of selecting omitted Pokemon for future games has been a very emotional issue for longtime fans of the series, but today, or at least when this article came out a couple days ago, something awful which cannot be condoned has happened. A Twitter user, basically which calls herself a former employee of Game Freak, posted a story about her experience, though. The account suspected to be made by a supporter of the Bring Back Natural Dex. The story, which has been taken down on Twitter log, contains following slanders of message. Basically, this person is making a claim that the producer of Pokemon engaged in inappropriate activities to this person, though. Many Pokemon fans have condemned the actions of a person behind the fake account for spreading slandered and hateful things of the producer of the Pokemon series. Whichever side you are on, we urge Pokemon fans to remain calm and respectful of the people behind these games. It's okay to be respectful, ask for things, but it's not okay to slander someone with false accusation. Now, regardless of whether this person was real or whether this account was fake, though, I do have to say this is utterly unacceptable, and to go to that level is entirely. I mean, rape is a serious allegation, and when you make a false allegation like that, that is just not only wrong, but it also hurts people who may have actually been in that terrible experience, and now people are going to look at them and think that they are basically making the story up. So even if this person was a troll or whether this was a fake account or not, this was wrong on so many levels to accuse someone. And if it was someone part of this group that wants this feature to come in, really, over a video game, really, if this turned out to be not a fake account and it was actually someone who's doing this, that is deplorable and unacceptable under any circumstances, though. Okay. It's one thing to voice your opposition about something or criticize a feature you don't entirely 100% agree with, but to reduce it to a level of making a false allegation of rape like that is downright, in my view, downright deplorable. Regardless of whether this was a fake account or not, this is unacceptable. This is just downright terrible and all that stuff, and that should have never, ever happened. Look, I'm a believer, rape is a serious allegation, and any allegation needs to be independently investigated and verified just to to know whether this is true or not. But when it turns out to be a false allegation and something like this is pulled, though, that to me is just despicable and deplorable. And it also hurts people who may have gone through a terrible situation like that, and now they're going to be suspicious of basically putting out a false story. So my overall take is, it's one thing if you want to voice your opposition and you want to see a certain feature from a video game come back, if you voice your opposition in a respectful way. But when you have someone creating a false allegation, whether they are part of a group or whether it's just a troll trying to get some attention, that's where I have to draw the line. And this is downright, utterly unacceptable in my view. Okay, we're going to take a... this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about Nintendo's position in regards of censorship in video games? Do you think this is the right decision for them to make? Do you think it's not the right decision? Do you think it's right for them to not censor third-party video games and all, and that's really up to the ESRB or any other rating system out there? What are your thoughts about the UK sales for this week? Were you surprised to see Super Mario Maker 2 make it at the #1 spot? Or were you even more surprised to see that Bloodstained Ritual of the Night not only rose from, I think, 17 to #9, but even hearing that the Switch version outsold the PS4 and the Xbox One? What are your thoughts about the DLC for Cuphead being delayed, though? Are you a bit disappointed about it? Do you think the developers made the right decision to delay the DLC to avoid possibly what has been affecting the industry lately, and that is crunch time and so forth? What are your thoughts about EA's comments about them not liking to be a bad guy? Do you think that they are right with their statement, though? Do you think it's just another PR attempt and so forth? What are your thoughts about this? What are your thoughts about Langrisser 1 and 2 now finally coming over here to the West? Are you looking forward to this game? Is it something you would be willing to play after you maybe devoted hours into Fire Emblem Three Houses? And do you think if there are other entries out there, at least I'm not aware if there are or not, but if there are other entries out there, do you think they should remaster and port those games over here to the West, especially to either the PS4 or to the Nintendo Switch or the PC or all of them? And what are your thoughts about this whole controversy regarding Pokemon, though, in terms of the national Dex, if I'm saying the name correctly, though? Do you think some people are blowing this way out of proportion? Do you think Pokemon fans do have a right to be angry about it? Do you think this was the right decision for Game Freak to do? Do you think it was the wrong decision? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below if you're watching this on YouTube, and let me know what you think. And if you're also watching this on YouTube, make sure I will hope you hit that like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!